All right, 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, April 22nd to order, and the first item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I have one change. We're pulling number 10 off for tonight, pushing it back to the next meeting. We're not quite ready for prime time. Anything else? Hearing no other amendments, all in favor of approving the draft agenda with this one slight amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next is approval of the consent agenda.
I move.
Oh, second.
Moved and seconded. Anything anybody would like to talk to in the consent agenda? Farhad, a spelling error in the minutes, anything? No? Okay, hearing no comments on the consent agenda, all in favor of approving it as drafted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye? Okay, unanimous. Citizen comments, is there anybody here for something that's not on the, please?
Hi. I'm Dorothy Mammon, and I live on Springside Road in Middlebury. Some of you know me. I've been involved with an organization and involved in having some events in town, and coming up confused and chafing with the public assemblage policy. So I just want to briefly talk about that. I'm just going to read the definition of the public assemblage from the policy, and so this is what the policy applies to as written. Public assembly means any parade, march, ceremony, show, exhibition, pageant, or procession of any kind, or any rally or demonstration, or any similar display in or upon any public place which constitutes a public nuisance or presents a clear and present danger of substantial injury or harm to persons or property, or an imminent threat to the public health or safety. So all through this, then that's the definition of a public assemblage, is not just a gathering of people, but something that, is a public nuisance or a clear and present danger. So the ordinance to us is just a little confusing because there's places in here that talk about public assemblages sort of in the way that you or I might talk about public assemblages, not necessarily having the public nuisance and so on. But what has really so my conclusion from reading this is that for many of the things we do, we would not need a permit. Like today on the green, there was the notes to the earth. It was a very low-key event. Some people came by and wrote notes and stuck them in a fence. Then we took it all away, right?
Yes.
And yeah, so it wasn't a public nuisance by any stretch of the imagination. And we would, so I think for an event like that, we wouldn't really need, by my read, we wouldn't need a permit. But we would kind of, like we're law-abiding, rule-following bunch, we kind of would like to be able to say, hey, we're doing this. We don't know if other people are doing this, but the only mechanism in place right now is to apply for a permit. And if you apply for a permit, then you have to, by the way the application thing is written, then you have to get insurance, which costs us $100 every time, and so we'd like to have a weekly thing up there waving signs on the green, and we just can't do like $400 a month to pay for insurance, and plus it doesn't even apply. So I guess what I'd like to do is just inquire whether the town might be interested in having something like a voluntary registration or something akin to that, where groups could come in and say, we're going to do this thing on the green so-and-so day, and then at least you know that there isn't a conflict for groups trying to do something on the green, none of which meet the definition of public assemblage, and you would have a contact person for the event, and we would just kind of feel like we've done due diligence in letting the town know that we're going to do a little something on town property. So I think that, does that sound like what we, so that would be our suggestion, could there be a registration process that wouldn't trigger this whole insurance situation that doesn't really apply? Any questions for me?
David, this sounds like a good one for the policy committee.
Yeah, it's not the first time we've heard some concerns, not just specifically about the insurance, but also some confusion about the scope of what it applies to and what it doesn't. So Mark and I, hearing this and some other things previous, have talked about bringing it to the committee to kind of, there's a couple of angles for which it needs to be reviewed, I think, and can probably be improved.
It's been 26 years.
Yeah, we looked, it's been since the mid-90s, the last time it was amended, and it was written in the 70s, so it may also be worth having a legal review of it.
Yeah.
A few things have changed.
Reading the definition of a public assemblage sounds more like it's a riot than it is.
Well, I think the reason it's written that way is because of wanting to have this only apply to things, because there is the constitutional right to assemble and petition your government for whatever, you know, and so I think the reason it's written this way is to make sure it is not treading on standard just right to assemble and express yourself, which is, so I think that's the, I didn't get into that angle at all because I just went from this, like, this doesn't apply to us perspective,
Right.
but I think that would be, if you rewrite this, an important thing to preserve so that we don't end up treading on people's rights to assemble.
Wouldn't there be a liability if we don't have insurance, if something happens there? If you don't require insurance, how do you deal with
That's a
that?
great question. I think that's the kind of things we would look into
Yeah.
as part of an assignment.
Andy has.
Andy's
I
got
think
his
we
hand
can
up.
answer
Policy
that
chair
tonight, but
has his hand
definitely
Well-
appreciate you pulling that forward and it
Yeah.
sounds like it's time to modernize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, for the time being, we're gonna figure that unless we are a public nuisance or clear and present danger, this doesn't apply to us.
The policy chair has a question,
Andy, you're
Oh.
muted.
or a statement.
Thanks. No, my sense of a public assemblage is that whenever you take a public space and you use it for a group which is not any member of the public, that you have a forum where you come to the town and you say, we would like this use of the public space during this time for this purpose. And then the town comes forth and says, well, there might be some security or hazard issues with using this street or whatever it might be. And that's my sense of the purpose of the assemblage permit, is that you're creating an exclusive use of what's otherwise a public space. But this is something which definitely should be clarified. That language is horrible, and I think it's a great topic for policy review.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Jason?
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Oh, you're
Jason
welcome.
Rock, and tonight I'm wearing my East Middlebury Prudential Committee hat. The reason why I'm here tonight is Jen Murray has stepped down from her position with the fire district, and we need to fill that position. So she was elected in January to a 3-year position. After her resignation, the committee voted to appoint Chaz Lyons, who lives in the district, to fill that position for the remainder of this year. So finish out the first year of her 3-year term. At the end of that 1-year term, at our annual meeting, Chaz will or will not, sit for another term if he's elected or not elected by at our annual meeting. So what we're looking for is for you to appoint him to that board, for the duration of this first year of Jen's term. And this is, the Prudential Committee gets the opportunity to appoint a lot of positions, if they come up vacant, but we can't appoint ourselves, so we can't appoint
Understood.
our own member, so we have to come to you to get that authorized.
Okay.
So
Question?
This is until next January?
Yes, so he'll serve the remainder of the first year of Jen's term, and
Okay.
then he'll sit for a 2-year election for a 2-year position.
Any questions?
I think Chaz is a great find.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to
I
working
would
with him.
move to approve Chaz Lyons to fill the current vacancy in the East Middlebury Fire District number one Prudential Committee.
Second?
Seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Jason?
Thanks, Jason.
Here we go.
So, as part of our town manager's move to get staff in front of us, we have our first manager report to the select board in our new public works operations, David DiBiase.
Did a good job. It's good. I've been called worse, so don't worry about that. Good evening, everybody. How are we today?
Good.
Good. Well, excited to be here. So I'm about 4 months into DPW. I think it's going really well. We've got I have to say that the staff down there is tremendous. You hear a lot of things before you take a new job, and I will say most of them were not true. The group down there is just absolutely fantastic, and they work every day to the extent that they can with the tools that you guys provide them, which is really well staffed and well provided for equipment. We got Jeremy here tonight, so head of my wastewater division. You guys have been well versed in wastewater over the last couple of years, and obviously know many things that are going on in that world. But I have to say, these folks here on the daily, and to the extent that I don't even know, are running around town fixing and putting out the fires that exist because of all the reasons that this wonderful community supported a very large bond to fix the problems. But that is an ongoing every day. If we can catch these guys not fixing something, it's a miracle. And so those guys are pretty self-sufficient over on that end of town, and that's kind of, they're making it work until we get the new plant up and running in a couple, 3-4 years from now, hopefully, right? 2029, right, Jeremy?
Hopefully.
Yeah, that's right, hopefully. So wastewater is wonderful, and they're doing a heck of a job over there. They're fully staffed right now. We're getting ready to get the budget ready for both sewer and water in the next month or so. So that we're in progress with that with Emily, and we'll get down with Mark and the crew here in the next month. Highway division, we had a busy winter. I don't know if you guys noticed, but it didn't stop snowing at all, even when it felt like we only got a little bit. It takes a lot of salt. So salt usage this year was high. It was also there was a lot of shortage in the salt world. So there was a couple of times where we got a little close. Luckily, we have a great relationship with Carreras and Middlebury College, where we can all use a little bit here or there when we need to and replace that. So we got through the winter, but it was tight. We know sidewalks were an issue. We had some conversation with the infrastructure committee about trying to fix that solution with some new equipment that was built into the capital this year funding. It may be a little more than that, but some of the other equipment's gonna be a little less. So I think we're gonna work out to a place where that makes a lot of sense. We toured last week, and actually Matt Cram and I went over to a couple different shows in Eastern New York and Connecticut looking at equipment. And then we went up to the town of Enosburg. They let us come up, and they have one of the pieces of equipment that we really, something different as we look through what's out there in the world for snow removal on sidewalks. And Enosburg, I think it was still snowing when we were up there, and that was like a week and a half ago, right? So those guys use that thing full time and loved it. So we've done a lot of research and pretty comfortable making something that, the sidewalk plow we have today that's what it does. And then it sits all summer, which in Vermont, right? Things that get covered in salt and they run through that all winter, they sit all summer. It's not the best thing for them. So we're looking for something that's more versatile, that'll plow the sidewalks well. It fits down the narrow ones such as the bridges, but can also be used through the summertime where it's keeping things moving and they're not just sitting there freezing up on us. So that was kind of the priority of DPW and the highway group, is to get that more versatile piece of equipment that doesn't sit all summer. They're fully staffed except for one position right now that was some natural leave of folks that came through that had to get separated from. So that was good. We were looking at that position as the DPW as a whole to see what's the best use, and I don't think we're there yet, but we're going to leave it vacant for the time being until we figure out really. I'd like to watch the staff a little further and see where we need to put people before we just fill positions. So we're doing some of that right now in the highway group. Lots of new trucks, all the good stuff that you guys all approved through the last capital year. They're busy getting ready for paving, and as you can see, we did a little sidewalkers, and we took some cobble out down here as a trip hazard, and I have to say those guys are just the jack of all trades. So Dave's got some idea, or Mark gets something from the public, and the next thing we know, like, sometimes I don't even know if they're out the door getting those things done. So it's very impressive to watch that team go to work every day. There's the old saying of somebody leaning against a shovel in the public works world, and I can tell you very clearly that the group in Middlebury doesn't lean against anything. They keep moving. The water department, where we are down to 2 staff right now. One left us for Virgins, unfortunately, and then another one we separated from. And then I think at that same position, they were at 4. We'd like to get back to 3, and let's see how that goes as far as what type of work we're actually getting out of 3 folks before, again, we fill that 4th position. And we're going to continue to look at staffing and that nature and make sure people are working to the full extent. And so change in leadership will change what we see them doing on a day-to-day basis. Got a lot of leaks still in town, so there's probably about 12 or 14 that have been slow seepers or just things that have not, valves that otherwise, you know, they're not spraying out of the ground or flooding anybody, but they need to get replaced. Since I've come and right before when Mr. Tom was here, we have not used a subcontractor outside of DPW's assets, so DPW Highway and Water Department have done all the breaks and have done any other excavation that needs to happen since December or November of last year. So we've spent $0 on outside excavation contractors to do that work. That's a huge thing. I think it's been a great builder for the camaraderie around the teams. They seem to be working really, really well together. And we've got the equipment. You know, I think there's some conversation about an excavator in the future that would certainly round out those kind of limitations of a backhoe. But I gotta tell you, I'm an excavator guy from way back and not a backhoe guy. Those guys make it look good, and they do a heck of a job with that piece of equipment. So pretty proud of that one because we were spending a lot of money, as you guys know, through the budgets in the last many years, paying outside contractors when we had the resources here to do it. So for example, we did a break in January, February. That break would normally cost us $68,000. I think it was $2,400 with every person we could ever want on that site to do the work, because we're also still training and learning from each other and how we work together. All the trucks, all the equipment, and it was, you know, a third, if not a quarter of the price of what we would have paid out in pocket. So pretty cool to see that going on. We've also done a lot of work with rec recently, so the pool house has been a priority. Getting that up and running. There was some piping that needed to get done. That was a leftover project from last fall. Every group in DPW put their hands in and took a piece of it and got it done. And so we got the piping all redone. We've had the DPW, the highway guys digging and putting curb stops in so we can shut the building down so we don't have to heat it all winter. Jeremy's been the chemist, scientist, and otherwise overseer of how we make this thing work as it's supposed to work, and we don't have our poor rec folks pulling their hair out trying to make the pool work. So pretty confident that that pool is going to be in the best shape it's been in quite some time. We had a contractor come out this week to look at the condition of the pool, more from capital expense and need, so we can understand, hey, what does this thing need in 3, 5, 10 years? So we're being a little more proactive in those places as opposed to reactive. Other than that, I think DPW is doing pretty well. I mean, we're going to do some sidewalk painting. We've done some sweeping recently. The weather has been good for that. And then we're on some stormwater projects, and then they're going to start doing a lot of digging, getting ready for paving in a couple areas that Emily has put out for bid. So,
David, what's your timing look like for sidewalk paving? Last year it got interrupted and we were quite late in the year.
It's out to bid now for Emily, so I think after we get that bid results back, I'm not sure when they're due, we're kind of at the mercy of whoever gets that contract to see when they slide us into to that. We also need to do a lot of sidewalk stuff. So there's panels, there's money for panel replacement singularly, or many singles, right, throughout the town, and then there's some longer stretches of sidewalk projects that are going to go out to bid as well.
Well, the crosswalk paving.
Crosswalk paving.
Paving.
We'd like to have that done before July, before the parade. Generally,
Yeah.
we'd like to have that all tied up together.
So that's the target?
Weather dependent, right? So if it rains or it's humid and it's wet, that is the target though, yeah.
I'm trying to remember what interrupted us last year. I think there was.
Got to it late, they said last year.
Got to it really late. We had a question about the plans for the interim bump to slow traffic going between the cutoff, the back cutoff to get into
The famous Rogers Road speed bump situation, yes. So we met with the Health and Safety Committee, I don't know, it was about a month ago, David, I think, and there was some discussion about what came out of this body as far as the direction, and so we kind of left it to say, hey, if the select board said put the temporary ones back in, we're happy to do it. We did go back and review the minutes, and it kind of said, I think the forward process was, let's find a permanent solution for the traffic in that area. So we, in part of the paving projects this year, we're going to put permanent speed tables in those, I can't tell you where, so that's part of Emily, and she had Robert, I think, part of that project from Otter Creek to tell us, you know, what makes the most sense when we put these tables in. So our intent, unless we're directed otherwise, I'm happy to do things, is to wait and just get the permanent speed tables in this year that hopefully won't cause as much noise, and some of the people that weren't happy with the speed bumps being the very violent rubber ones that they are, and they're really not made for even at that speed generally, and we don't have to put stakes down in the road or drill in to pin them. So ideally we would like to leave those out, knowing that we're going to put speed tables in during this summer's construction project. And again, back to my earlier statement, and I don't know when that will be, but during paving season this year.
Hi, my name is Barbara Drecklick. I'm here representing the Greater Biddulph neighborhood, and it was our understanding when the speed bumps were approved by the Selectboard and the Safety Committee prior to that, was that the temporary speed bumps would be installed until a more permanent solution could be decided upon. So I understand that you've reached a solution about permanent speed bumps, but we were understanding that until those were installed, we would have the temporary speed bumps. And I can just say that with the nicer weather, traffic has picked up considerably in the neighborhood. I live on the corner of Rogers Road and Daniel Drive, and we were told that the temporary speed bumps would be reinstalled in April, which is almost over with. So we're just a little concerned that if we have to wait until mid to late summer for a more permanent solution, that we're still going to be faced with a dangerous situation between now and then without the temporary speed bumps.
So as I said, we were going off the minutes of the select board meeting, which the last discussion, I think it was in November about them, or October, was to look for a permanent solution, was the verbiage that was put into the minutes. Again, I wasn't part of that discussion. Maybe you folks have some remembrance, and we're happy to move forward in whatever direction the select board feels is appropriate there. DPW preferably, outside of this, as from a maintenance aspect, would prefer not to put them in. There are some other folks that reach out to us fairly regularly that are not excited about the speed bumps, the noise in the vehicles. I know that's a smaller fraction of the larger group that came to the Health and Safety Committee, but they're certainly vocal as well about their concerns on the other side of that. So
How difficult is it to spike them in temporarily if the paving can't get to it until the end of the fall or whatever?
yeah, I think it's more about where we do them. So if we were going to put them in the same location at the speed table, and I don't know where those locations are right today, but if we're going to spike them somewhere else, we're just otherwise putting holes in pavement that until it gets repaved, that will get water and separation and dirt and mud, things like that in there. They move, they do end up migrating some as they get beat up over. And there's the noise piece of that too. So we're trying to be cautious of where we put them, that we're not otherwise aggravating the people that may otherwise have feelings today already about putting them in front of their houses. So
If you're
already
already,
maintenance, right? It's not a huge deal for us, I think, but
you're already planning to have an idea of where you put the tables, maybe you could try them out in those locations.
and I think that was why when I think she was here, looking at, let's take a harder look before we just say, let's plop them in the two spots that we plopped temporary. Let's really take a look at where this makes the most sense for traffic noise and impacts and put them there. So I don't know where those locations are today, so I couldn't go out tomorrow.
Put the tables on, they'll cover up the whole.
Right, and that's why if we're to put them in the same spots, once we locate them, we can certainly have that
I think
conversation.
Megan's got her.
Megan's got a question.
Megan, if you
or
could just
comment.
unmute yourself. Yep.
Yeah, hi. Hi, David, thank you.
Yeah.
This is tricky for me because I'm now on the select board, but I was part of that group and I live on Rogers Road. And I just wanted to point out and follow up on what Barbara said, that we also came several times last year and we had a petition with more than 120 signatures on it for people who really supported the speed bumps. And I know there were some sound concerns, which you know about, but the rest of the community on the street has been very willing to, people have volunteered to have the bumps in front of their own house, so we're happy to have them wherever they need to be. So I just wanted to point that out and remind you that it is a really crucial street that connects the three public elementary schools, three public schools, the elementary, the middle, and the high school. So anyway, just wanted to remind you of that. And I think an interim solution to slow traffic and make people feel safer would be would be appreciated among the many people who signed that petition. Thanks.
Maybe I've got just a quick question. What current issues or any future issues might keep you awake at night?
Sidewalk plan next year.
Yeah.
Staffing on the water side. Obviously, we're down to 2 right now. That's a lot of my background as well, so we fill in there pretty easily from my position to help those guys out. But if we were to lose another, we'd be in a little bit of rougher spot. And then I think just generally making sure that we're doing things in a manner that is, it feels like some of the things that I've seen in my time here have been done to more of a knee-jerk reaction as opposed to really putting some thought into how we spend our money through our budget cycles. We have some excess stock in the water department. We have all the things to fix anything we'd ever want in the water department. So I don't think keep me up, Dan, but I think water department, sidewalk plowing for next year, and otherwise, if I can keep Jeremy from, staying out of trouble because he's so busy, I worry about those guys because they're just so self-sufficient. But which sometimes is great until things are really bad and they just do a heck of a job. And, I worry the stress level on those folks until we can get that new plant up and running because they got a lot going on down there for sure. But yeah, no, otherwise it's pretty good.
Good, thanks.
Coming back to the speed tables, my name is Marie Fidel, I live on Daniel Drive, and I was wondering if there was anything that was taken into consideration to what you would do about Daniel Drive and the amount of traffic and the motorists that chose to use Daniel instead of going over the speed bump and increase the amount of traffic on our street due to the speed bumps. And I was wondering if there's going to be what you have in mind, as Daniel Drive has been in any way considered into this problem, and are you going to do speed tables on Daniel also, or are we only doing protecting Roger Road?
In my answer today will be, I'm not sure, and that was more of the consideration of let's talk to our engineering folks. Let's take a look at the entire picture, including Daniel Drive Road, to make sure we're not pushing a problem somewhere else that didn't exist before we put these things up. So yes, consider, not specifically, but the entire section of roadway and all the arterials that will otherwise be affected by that.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you, David.
Thanks, David.
That's great, Dave.
Thank
Thanks.
you. So is Emily joining us here?
She's here.
Oh, there she is. Good evening, Emily.
I'm here. Hi, I think Jeremy's actually taking the lead on the first conversation for the RMI proposed contract. Is that accurate, Jeremy?
Yes, I can do that.
He's coming up.
Thanks for your time. I'll give you the nickel tour of this. Went into it in a bit more detail by the infrastructure, but I won't go into everything here. This is being driven by some of the bills that have been proposed at the state level this year and past years as well. The one that got more traction, it seemed, this year was a bill called H303, which was a proposal to actually ban the land application of biosolids in the state of Vermont. Which, of course, because we in the town of Middlebury take our waste activated sludge and our septage, and instead of landfilling it, we actually heat treat it and lime stabilize it to create a beneficial reuse farm product that a farmer up in Panton uses. That would greatly affect us because we would go with much higher disposal costs if all of a sudden, instead of doing land application for farming purposes, we were required to actually put this in a landfill, because as you know, there's one landfill in the state of Vermont in Coventry, and a lot of, if this ever came to pass, a lot of this would all end up having to go out of state. So I actually ended up going to the State House to give some testimony on H303 so that they understood what the ramifications would be on a wastewater treatment plant in the state of Vermont for like the town of Middlebury, and they could use that to look at how it would affect other wastewater plants, the increased costs, and the way it would affect a lot of other different factors besides just the biosolids program. This, however, did make us take a look at our biosolids program, and the fact that right now we have one place that we dispose of those biosolids, and with Adams Farm up in Panton, and they've been a great partner for many a year now. But at the same point, with the fact that people are starting to look at land distribution of biosolids, and we don't know what the future holds, we also don't think it would be a good idea to have all our eggs in one basket. So RMI is a company out of New Hampshire that actually uses biosolids like this, and they mix it with other products to create basically a manufactured topsoil that then can be used on construction sites and other locations. And so it basically becomes a alternative place for us to get rid of our biosolids. And so what this proposal is we contacted RMI for two reasons. We have two options on here. One was to help us with disposing of our non-compliant biosolids, because with our we have a 25-year-old plant, and with a heat treating and lime stabilization process, every now and then we have problems with it. And anything that doesn't meet the temperature parameters or the pH parameters, we cannot treat as an EQ biosolid. So we actually have to, we monitor all this daily, we test it all in the lab, and anything that doesn't meet the parameters we put in what we call our non-compliant pile. And so they help us with that non-compliant pile. They actually take it, reprocess the whole thing, and turn it into an EQ biosolid. But at the same point, we wanted to see if there was another place where we could look to somebody to use our EQ biosolids. And RMI came, looked at our product, and they're interested. What this is a proposal to do is actually to start diverting a small amount of our waste stream to RMI to start establishing that process and making sure that they would be happy with our EQ biosolids and they'd be interested in using this product in the future. Obviously, we wouldn't want to, it's more expensive. Right now, we pay the farmer up in Panton $20 a ton. This would be a little over $58 a ton. But we would like to try to establish, basically start diverting a small amount of the waste stream so that they start using the product, see the benefit of our product, and then if we should ever need to diversify in the future through some unknown thing happening, you know, a change in the laws, something happens with Adams Farm where they don't have a use for our product anymore, something like that, we have already some established relationships in the business. So that's what this proposal is here about. It would, what we're thinking is to divert up to 20% of our production. We modeled it out based on the 2024 historic data. We have a budget line item of $120,000 for disposal, for our contract disposal of our biosolids. If we were to divert 20% of it, that would basically drive that budget item from $120,000 a year to $140,000 a year. We've already started building that into our budget for next year, but we want to make sure that that is something that the select board is okay with us pursuing.
Questions? So if, it looks like you did a pro forma from, well, you did 24 historic, and then you did like a pro forma what it would be like if you had done it, and it came out to almost $40,000. And I understand what you're doing. I think it's a good idea, but with the future project that we have to do that's going to cost a whole lot of money, can we afford to spend another $40,000 a year when we're looking at a $50 million project?
That's a good question. I think it's in my opinion, as the operator, it's a qualified risk, right? So there is a chance that we were spending this money and we never need to use it. But if all of a sudden something happens where we need another disposal stream for our EQ biosolids and we are scrambling to set one up, I think we're going to be concerned that we didn't act sooner on it. Also, It is a $40,000 increase, but we undershoot that budget item as of last year. So we actually budgeted 120. We only actually spent 102 on it. So the actual increase is only 20, which is, out of I don't have my calculator in front of me, but out of a 3.2 million budget is not a huge increase. I can tell you it's a number of increases we're looking in the budget. This is nothing compared to the tariff stuff that I'm looking at for the products that come out of Canada.
What comes out of Canada? The line?
The line. And we've looked at alternate suppliers, and the closest alternate supplier we've been able to find is Pennsylvania, and it's actually the same parent company. And to truck it all the way from Pennsylvania, we'd have to be operating under about a 50% tariff for products out of Canada to make it economically viable. But right now in the budget that I'm assembling for next year, for like the quicklime and stuff, I'm building in a worst case 25% tariff.
We're already paying a 25% one?
Well, that's what it was, that's the thing. This is a moving target, right? So at this point, I believe it's exempt. Based on the last law rules that came down, it's exempt. The very first thing that the president put in place was 25, and I got a single bill with 25% attached to it. I believe that the new tariffs that have gone into place with Canada, it's actually exempt because I have not gotten the tariff addition on the last 2 bills from Gremont out of Quebec. But budgets are based on worst case projections, so we're, with the speed and rapidity with it everything is changing, basing the budget on the initial tariff projections that we dealt with at the very beginning.
That's a great example that the tariff is going to be passed to the consumer.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So it's
shocking.
So it's really, Dan, it is additional costs. It's really me just trying to deal with the fact that, to plan for the possible changes in the future. Because I'll tell you, this isn't the first biosolids ban bill that's come up. I think this is number 10 over the last 15 years. Times this has been introduced. And we don't know what will come down the pike next year or the year after. We don't know if maybe, talking to regulators of the state of Vermont, they could foresee in the future that someday there's a compromise bill where it's banned for agriculture but not construction use, right? So they could still use it on the side of like the interstate highways where it gets used on construction projects, but maybe not used for animal fodder agriculture. A lot of it has to do with I guess I am getting into the weeds a little bit. There's an interim strategy that's dealing with a lot of the pollutants that everybody's concerned with. Mm-hmm. And those regulations are still being written, mm-hmm. And we have to see how all that comes down the pike. I can tell you, when I was in speaking to the environmental committee, I was there with the regulators that are writing those, because we work hand in hand with them, and we're working with them on the interim strategies for these pollutants in our sampling.
Well, I would assume that if there's a legislation that bans all the use of biosolids in that manner, that the legislation obviously has some other idea what to do with the biosolids, right?
No, don't assume that.
Well,
another shocking statement.
So and what we worry about is like what happened with Maine, where in Maine they passed a bill very quickly, and then logistically it became very, very difficult. At one point there was one landfill in the state of Maine that was still taking biosolids, and they had to stop taking it. And they didn't have to stop taking it because they ran out of room. They had to stop taking it because they didn't have enough dry goods to mix with it, and the piles of garbage became structurally unstable. And so nobody thought of that when they were writing the bill in Maine. So and that's so. I do apologize, I'm getting into the weeds. But basically the whole point of this is just trying to get ahead of the possible problems that we might see coming down the pike. Same thing with the budgeting for the tariffs.
Speaking for the Infrastructure Committee, the minutes of the Infrastructure Committee just appeared in your packets and under the consent agenda, so I probably haven't had time to see it. But Andy, I will concur. I'm sure that the presentation to the Infrastructure Committee was compelling. The testimony that he gave in Representative Sheldon's Environment Committee was really excellent. There was a video link that you provided for that, and a result of that, a follow-up email that I think you saw and Andy saw, was that the chair is not going to advance a bill to outright ban it because it's just too drastic, and the implications so many other communities would have be racing for a solution like RMI. So anyway, I just compliment you on that and refer the board to the infrastructure committee did recommend this unanimously. And we think it's wise to do it, establish it and use it as we need to. If you can undershoot that, and that, or are you required to give them?
No, they don't require a certain percentage. It's more just establishing a relationship. And I think with the fact that we have a farmer who has a beneficial use for that product and does really great land management and nutrient management on their soils, I think as long as they would like to keep taking that and they are able to keep taking that, I think it would be great. This is more just kind of making sure to establish a relationship for a backup.
So, I'm actually not for it. I think we're doing it based upon the idea that they could legislate, and the fact that you lobbied is great, and I think that if it gets to the point, I think, you know, leadership should be there lobbying as well, and doing more than lobbying, twisting arms. That they should not be legislating something to drive everything to a landfill. We've got one landfill left in Vermont, and it's not moving Vermont forward. And so to spend $40,000, or in your mind $20,000, but it's really $40,000 because we saved $20,000 last year, but the following year it'll be $40,000. And if we keep following that train of thinking, it'll be $60,000 the next year. We have we have a real challenge with some of the things already. The tariff additional expense that you've mentioned. We'll have extra expenses on some of the things. I don't think that this is the year that we make a decision just because we want to develop a relationship. I think this is the year that we wait and see where the legislation's going, and we become more active. You know, I'm happy to go talk with legislators. It sounds like bad legislation is what it sounds like. And that's the only reason why you're leaning towards doing this, why you're asking for it. Yes, please.
Why wouldn't you be looking here in Vermont for other farms that might want to take the 20% you're talking about?
Well, it's not that we have plenty of, I think we have other farmers. It's the reason why he's promoting this is the fear that we wouldn't be able to apply it to the land, because I'm sure there are other farmers here in Addison County who would take any excess that we have right now. I agree with you.
Yeah, that is the driving factor. Yeah, is the fact that it's the trying to plan for the if it should come down the pipe sometime that they start limiting the use of it for agriculture.
Brian, Andy's got his things.
Andy.
Thanks, Brian. I am in favor of letting Jeremy take on this kind of risk management. If we end up landfilling, we're looking at a cost of what, $200 a ton?
$220.
$220 a ton. I think that the presentation to the House was excellent, and we did hear from Amy that this is something that new legislators always get interested in, and then they start to understand the reality of it, and they're less interested when they realize that PFAS is indeed everywhere, and that this is not actually increasing the level of PFAS in the environment where it's used. But that risk of getting a 10x charge on our total disposal versus spending a little bit to have a place to send it, I think that this is the kind of risk work that we want heads to be doing.
I disagree with you, though. I mean, we deal with risk on everything we do, and I don't think that the risk is compelling enough to spend the extra money. I just don't.
Could I offer something? Would you be interested in pursuing it if it was only as budget allows? I have my set operating budget. I monitor that operating budget during the year. I will know where I'm going to be at. I project it every month, and if I have an underrun.
So, yeah. Does developing a relationship guarantee that if they change the statute, that we could send 100% of our product to them? Do they have the capacity, and we would be in competition with every other municipal waste? It's a race to the bottom. I don't, as a business person, I think it's a fool's errand, but you guys vote the way you want. I'm just telling you, I'm gonna vote against it. I just disagree. I do not think that you manage our legislative house, the way, some of the bills that they've been passing, if we were managing everything in anticipation of some of the bills, you know, if we bought all of our, they're talking about legislating mandatory EV vehicles for over the road. Are we gonna buy all of our snowplow vehicles EV because we're afraid that they're gonna legislate it?
No, we're not, but it's also my job as your chief operator to manage risk.
I get it.
You know?
But my concern of risk is not it's just you operating. We've spent a lot of extra money to buy repair parts in advance that we're gonna throw out when we redo our, the waste plant. And I don't know, I'm just having a hard time spending 40 grand a year.
Well, I'd like to correct you. There's no parts we bought that we're going to throw out.
I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, I'm the chief operator, Brian. What have we bought that we're going to throw out?
Well, you're not throwing it out, but you're not going to use it. We're doing away with the equipment. It's not broken. We bought it because we're fearful of it breaking and not being able to find it.
Right.
I've done the tour. You told me that.
Right, but I mean, we're going to try to resell or repurpose that stuff. We're not throwing anything in a dumpster, and it's risk management. I get what you're saying, but I just don't like it.
That's where I want to spend the money, on the risk management. I don't want to spend it on paying to send stuff to New Hampshire because we're afraid that our legislators are going to be short-sighted and drive our municipal waste systems into trucking everything out of state.
Okay.
But it's not my decision. I'm telling you why I feel pretty strongly about that. We have a huge budget to balance, and $40,000 that's not chump change.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be we're already asked everybody to support a huge investment in that facility.
Yeah. I know. I started this morning at 6:55 with a screwdriver in my hand trying to fix stuff that should have been replaced 10 years ago.
I know that. And that's our priority.
So I fully understand that. And all I'm trying to do is prevent us from getting in a situation like that again.
I know. But because you testified, you're more fearful than I am. I don't think they'll do it.
Okay.
I'm conflicted. That was my initial salvo with a question. Can we defer this for the next select board meeting and have some sidebars and maybe talk to Dave?
We don't have to vote on it tonight.
We can defer it to budget. I mean, we can just talk about it when I bring the budget back to you.
Well, we can advance it. You were looking to do it this year, though, right?
No, I'm not looking to do it until the next budget cycle. I'm not doing it
yeah, then I would rather not.
Till next summer.
We need to wait.
Right.
Well, why not wait and see what the legislators do? Mm-hmm. I mean, then we shouldn't be making a decision on it now anyways.
Okay.
I just want to comment. I appreciate you coming here and sticking it out like that.
No, there's no hard feelings. It's just that's what I'm always going to do. Is I'm going to be advocating for the stuff I'm worried about.
I'm impressed with that. I really like that. And I just hope you didn't get any job offers from any other towns when you testified, because you're the best in the state, I know, and you're the smartest in the state. So
no, it's fine, and I totally get where everybody's coming from. It's just I'm always going to view it different because I'm not looking at the whole town. You got to understand that I'm looking at.
And we're glad you're looking at that.
And you're doing well. And you're doing very well. Thank you.
You need to be looking at that.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of money coming down.
I understand. I understand completely, Brian. I understand completely. So we'll revisit after when we talk budget later. Okay. Very good.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Now we're with you, Emily.
much easier topic.
Yeah.
We are coming to infrastructure, 2 meetings in May for both water and wastewater budgets, so, and I've been working on it with Jeremy, so it's in the works as we speak. The only contractual item that I had on the agenda tonight was our urban forestry management plan. We were able to get a 2024 urban and community forestry grant, as you may recall, last year. And in that, we were allocating funds to do this urban forestry management plan for the town and also do a planting over at the rec center on Creek Road. And so we wanted to put out the RFQ first for this urban forest management plan, just so that we could figure out the costs and then be able to work from that to do the planting with the leftover funds. So we had a decent, I think we had 4 different applicants that submitted proposals to it, and a committee, 4 members of the tree committee, and then 3 of us internally looked at the proposals and decided to go with Dumpman Urban Forestry Consultants. They are a Vermont-based company. Chris Zioli knows them well and gave them rave reviews. Their cost was lower than others, and I think it enables us to, we can either build more into the plan depending on, as you know, once it starts growing, what we're still looking for and what else we need, but it also allows us to do more of the planting on the other side of the grant, the available funds left over.
Any questions on it?
Once again, the infrastructure committee unanimously recommended this. This would result in a plan, it's a town-wide tree planting plan, and a specific planting for the rec center area, and the process that was used was approved and supported by the infrastructure committee.
This looks like a huge effort for $7,300.
I was looking at their proposal, I thought, geez, that's a $7,000 proposal. It looked more like a $30,000 proposal.
Right.
Their resume is pretty impressive with Central Park and all sorts of places on it.
Yeah.
I think the plan, some of the main components that we were looking for, we have the tree survey that the college worked with the tree committee and Dan on prior to me coming on board. And so we have that. We would like them to build that and also complete a risk assessment with that survey so that we can, you know, we have some ash trees, we have different trees that are in downtown locations or public streets that definitely need to get reviewed. And then also give planting location recommendations and just an overall conceptual plan for species diversification and, you know, projecting out 20 years what our overall canopy will look like. And they seem pretty qualified for all of that.
Any questions on it? Pleasure of the board.
I move to authorize Public Works to enter into the proposed agreement with Gentleman Urban Forestry Consultants for $7,300.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Other projects?
Other project, yeah, a few. So I have a few things going on, but they got moved into the item summary, it looks like. We do have paving out to bid right now, and in the infrastructure packet, I included the list of roads. It's, it's not, there's some uncertainty of the cost with the tariffs, so I'm curious to see where our numbers come in this year. We did separate out the Halliday Road reclaim so that that could be a bonded project. It's a larger project than just paving, shim, and overlay. And so that one has not gone out to bid yet. The one that's currently out to bid is just for, residential streets. And then the other, is Jason LaRock still in the room there, or did he?
He is.
It depends.
Oh, he moved.
Do you wanna put on your Rotary hat, Jason, and talk about the fishing access?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to.
You can come on.
Mary, want me to come?
I think you need to come
Come on
up,
up so the mic
Jason.
can grab you.
So I'll be real brief. So, the Middlebury Rotary, so Jason LaRock, wearing my Rotary hat right now. Middlebury Rotary is going to have our 100th or centennial birthday in 2027. So we're looking at a variety of community-related projects that we can, put forth for the town. This year, we're looking to get a district grant, which actually gets filed on Friday, for matching funds to support a handicapped fishing access point down on Mill Street. So between the pump station and Mad Taco. So what we're envisioning is a pressure-treated deck that'll be elevated above the floodplain, set on helical piles that will be used for handicapped fishing. Probably, not a large one. We're anticipating it's probably going to be 12 by 8, 10 by 8, somewhere in that range. We're still working on the cost estimates for that proposal. This would be something, if we get the grant, we'd look to be building in probably August. We've met with wetlands, state river engineer, had some discussions with Middlebury planning and zoning, and we met with the infrastructure committee last week. So this is something that would be built by Rotary, funded through Rotary and other donations, and then would be gifted to the town.
Wow, nice.
And the hope is that when Emily paves Mill Street, that there'd be a little extra funding to help with the access to that platform.
Is there any zoning issues on that, as far as having to?
It's more a state permit issue. You have to get a stream alteration permit and prove that you're not adversely affecting flood flows and.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Great.
That's the biggest hurdle. And then also navigating the town's floodplain regulations.
Okay.
But
you guys are well aware of that? And
we're working on that.
Got a guy on staff that'll.
We have someone who's gonna work on that. There's no guarantees.
Okay.
But we've had those preliminary conversations with everybody involved, and no one threw up their hands and said, "You are not doing this." So since they said that, it must mean we can do it, right?
Absolutely. It sounds like a great project.
I hope so. I hope it'll be a great asset to the community, and that'll get used. So there's no real good handicap fishing access along the creek.
Jason, after the infrastructure committee meeting, and the infrastructure committee did support this, I went down and looked at it, and for whatever reason, there seems to be a collection of foam.
We're gonna put it up so high that you're gonna be able to cast over that.
Okay, you're getting rid of the foam.
Yeah.
Great.
There's some
It seems
PFOA
like
you put in there.
unpleasant place to fish in foam.
Adds a new. Yeah. No, that's, that area, at certain times of the year does get that, I
Just no
remember.
top lures.
Yeah. So, and, you do get debris along the bank.
You could accidentally do something to cause a little more dispersion of the.
So we're not gonna be in the water at all, so we're not gonna be affecting that. So everything that floats up there today, it's gonna float up there tomorrow. What I am hoping is that, as the area gets used more, people are gonna pick up more stuff, but yeah, the foam, and that's.
It's a natural condition in the river.
It's a natural condition.
I just don't know why it happens to happen right.
Yeah, but I've seen it happen all over there. I used to work in that building, and I remember just seeing chunks of foam in the river. It's just the weirdest thing. So what causes that? If it's a certain time of year or a certain runoff that does it, I really don't know.
Thanks, Jason.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Emily?
The other item that we talked about at infrastructure that I think is worth noting here is the Addison County River Watch. We are working with them on Soak It Up Stormwater campaign, which will assist residents in constructing small stormwater treatment practices in their yards. And the goal is, if we can get enough residents grouped together, we can qualify through the Clean Water Service Provider funding that regional planning is working with. They have a set amount of funding that has to go towards stormwater, can't be towards actual stormwater permit locations. And so they've been challenged with allocating the funds. And so I think this would be a really good use. The area that I was specifically thinking of, sort of the Buttolph development, Daniel Drive, that whole area where those homes got hit pretty hard in the 2023 flooding. And we had a lot of concerned residents in those neighborhoods looking for assistance. So I think this might give them some, might just help them alleviate the pressure in their own yards from rainwater and stormwater.
Okay.
I think they're hosting a meeting in May. I think it's May 24th. I forget if it's on here. I don't think it's on this sheet. People can reach out to me if you need more information, or Matthew Witten from Riverwatch is leading the charge. But ideally, as a town, we're also going to sit down and look at sites that are town-owned to try to develop some rain gardens and things of that nature on our public spaces to help support the community and also support the cause.
Can you maybe take a look at that Rogers Road situation in the next meeting, or just maybe let the town manager know so he can give us an idea what the thoughts are and timing as far as if we're gonna do something permanent or if we should go back to the.
Are you talking the paving piece of it?
Right, whether we're gonna do or maybe you already know?
We got that grant, well, we were awarded that grant last summer for just over $1 million for the Buttolph Development Rogers Road Connectivity Project. And we have not actually received the contract from the state yet because it's tied up at the federal level.
Okay.
So we haven't been able to advance that project at all. I was going to reach out to the engineer just to see if we could start moving the traffic calming piece of it forward in advance of that actual funding and do it on the side.
Okay, so that's part of I mean, that's a big part of the answer timing wise. It's not gonna be soon, but if you hear something on that, if you could let us know so we can have a discussion about whether we.
I think we can do it this summer. I think it'll be pretty easy to engineer it. It's just, I don't want to just throw it in anywhere. I want to have some thought be put into the process for where we are.
No, I was just asking more about timing. Where your thoughts were on timing, so.
So I'm guessing, I think that would go out with the paving contract that is out to bid right now. It'll just be an add-on to that contract. And typically, those roads don't get paved until more like September timeframe.
Okay.
You know where you might put these future speed bumps to try out the temporary ones until you pave it?
No, that's what we need engineering to look at. I mean, I have my locations that I would make recommendations, but I want to meet with an actual engineer to talk about it. Right. Megan has a hand up.
Hi, Megan. We got you.
I'm muting. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Just to clarify, is this the grant that was for the sidewalk? Are you saying you're starting the sidewalk? You could start the sidewalk this fall?
Well, no. So the sidewalk, that funding is through V-Trans, and so the process takes at least 18 months, if not 24, because it has to go through NEPA review and right away and all of those different steps. But we haven't even gotten the contract yet. It's tied at federal level.
So the other part of that $1 million grant is for paving of.
No, there's no funding in for paving. I was going to build traffic calming into that project.
Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. I think what you were saying.
I think we were jumping around between two different
Okay, okay, so the thing that
Time to get to this.
you are starting by this fall is traffic calming measures.
So we have a paving bid out now. And to that, I would like to add traffic calming measures to alleviate the issues on Rogers Road, build some temporary speed tables. But I would like to work with an engineer sort of on the side of the actual sidewalk contract, because we don't have that in action yet. But part of the intent of that contract was to install traffic calming measures.
Got it.
So I think I want to pull it out of that contract, look at it on the side so that we can get it in time to add it to our paving.
Okay, cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you for
Okay.
clarifying that.
Yep.
Okay, anything else, Emily?
No. I don't think so.
Then we've got the certification of town road bridge standards.
Yeah, this is just an annual certification. I think it usually goes in the consent agenda, I think, but, just the annual certification of our roads and the, amount of funding that we have allocated to them so that the state pays us, what they contribute towards class 1, 2, 3 roads.
Any questions? Pleasure of the board.
I move to approve the 2025 certification of compliance. Oh, excuse me, that's the next one. Sorry.
No, that's
No,
not.
that's it.
That's it. Oh, certificate of compliance for the town bridge standards and network inventory.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Okay, thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks.
Okay, we have Alex and Fred. Can you introduce your compatriot to
Yes,
the town of
good
Middlebury?
evening. Thanks for having us on your agenda tonight. Appreciate it. For the record, I'm Fred Kenny, Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. I want to thank Richard McCurr, who's your representative to ACEDC, for joining us tonight. And Jason was here, and in one of his other hats, he's the chair of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation right now. But before we get to the subject on the agenda, I want to introduce, I'm the outgoing executive director. I'm retiring, and we've hired Alex Armani Munn to take my place, and he's been on board. We've been overlapping for a couple of months, and I will slowly reduce my hours and give him the reins. So look forward to having him work with you in my place.
Thank you, Fred.
So the issue we wanted to talk about tonight is opportunity to do some pre-development work in the Middlebury Industrial Park. The Vermont Agency of Commerce and Community Development received a grant from the Federal Northern Borders Regional Commission, and that was to provide capacity to Vermont Regional Development Corporations. We're one of those, to support the development of industrial commercial parcels and facilities. The 4 RDCs that received the grants were selected to leverage previously awarded NBRC funding in their communities. The grant to ACEDC is meant to leverage the NBRC grant that went to Middlebury, I believe it was in 2022, for the Court Street water infrastructure improvements. So they wanted to give some more money to some RDCs to leverage previous NBRC infrastructure grants that were given out. That award from NBRC to the town of Middlebury was justified in part because it would allow the town to expand industrial commercial growth in the downtown and on Exchange Street. So through the state, NBRC gave a grant to the state. The state has granted that out to 4 regional development corporations, and we each got $25,000 grant. Ours was
to fund a proposal to undertake pre-development activities for some parcels in the industrial park, and the parcels that we have selected at this point are known as phase 2 and 3, or lots 8 to 16 of the industrial park. That's kind of the area north of the Career Center North Campus, the undeveloped parcels that are owned by Middlebury College. And I think your packet has a map
We have it up here.
showing it's the red outlined parcels that we would be concentrating this work on. And the extent of the pre-development work that we can accomplish will depend on the total amount of funds that we're able to dedicate to the project. So we're asking the town and Middlebury College to partner with us to take those parcels from an idea on a map to parcels that are ready for development, so that we can all be prepared if to help a local business grow. They need a place to develop a new building, or to welcome a new business to town. So that's how we got to where we are. I want to let Alex take it over and kind of talk a little bit more about what we can do from here on in.
Yeah, thank you, Fred, and thank you, Select Board members, for having us here tonight. I do see a few familiar faces, but I look forward to meeting those of you that I haven't gotten to meet yet and working with you in the future. So, as Fred mentioned, I'm going to speak now to where we are at in this process and how we hope to incorporate the town into the next steps. So ACEDC would like to proceed with an RFP or an RFQ, so request for proposals or request for qualifications for the pre-development engineering work on all 9 parcels. I should mention that our timing and our urgency on this is really being driven by a deadline to perform work by the end of January 2026. So our expectation is that this work will cost approximately $120,000 to $130,000 for the full scope of work as proposed in our grant application. And this is based on a prior quote that we received from a local engineering firm, as well as some recent vetting that we've done with multiple engineering firms. So we feel very confident, without having gone through a formal RFP yet, that the cost will come in right around $130,000. So what we're asking the town tonight is to, first of all, participate in the RFQ process with us, as well as commit up to $50,000 from the redevelopment fund to support this work. And I do want to be clear that for us, we see the town playing a very vital and really essential role in this process. So when we ask the town to participate in the RFQ process, that really is separate from the financial ask. We're not simply here to ask for money so that we can run off and do this work. Regardless of the town's financial participation, we will make every effort to incorporate the town to ensure that the work that we do through this grant aligns with the town's vision for this area, as well as its comprehensive plan. So again, very important to us that we have the town's participation, and I'll speak to why the financial commitment is also important. So as I mentioned, as a partner, the town has a very important role to play here. Financially, we know that ACEDC and the college cannot bear the full cost of the entire scope of work, so that $120,000 to $130,000 is more than we can afford on our own. So again, regardless of the town's financial contribution here, we will have to proceed with the work. Without the contribution up to $50,000, what we'll have to do is reduce that scope of work. So that could be eliminating specific parcels from the scope, or eliminating technical work included in that scope of work. So again, regardless of that financial contribution, we will proceed. However, it's our preference not to do this with a piecemeal approach. We feel that the most efficient and effective way to really complete this work and best position this area for redevelopment is to do the pre-development engineering and the eventual horizontal construction all at once. So having to reduce the scope could cause complications later by not completing all site investigation right now in a comprehensive way. So again, that's where the financial contribution in our mind is very important. And again, taking certain parcels out now will still require work later that we anticipate will be more expensive if we wait 2, 3, 4 years to do that. In addition to just the efficiency and the effectiveness of doing all 9 parcels in the complete scope of work now, We also believe, and we know from our experience, that having 9 shovel-ready parcels is much more marketable than having 1 or 2 or 3 shovel-ready parcels. So with your support this evening, we will engage the town. So we will engage Mark and David to meet with myself as well as representatives from the college to actually draft the request for proposals or request for qualifications. And I can speak to the difference between those two approaches and why we might go either way. But again, I will meet directly with Mark and David along with representatives from the college to draft that RFP or RFQ and minister it and review proposals alongside them. And then likely in May or June, depending on the timeline for that RFP, we will come back to the select board to present those proposals as well as a recommendation on what firm or what proposal we'd like to go with based on the criteria, the evaluation criteria we agree on together. So once a firm is hired, work will proceed immediately. Again, we really want to meet that January 2026 deadline. So that work will be completed within 12 months, and I say 12 months very conservatively. I fully expect that work to be completed well in advance of 12 months. And of course, we'll provide updates to the select board throughout that process. So I want to speak for a moment to the importance of this work as being just one step in a larger process. And first of all, go back to something Fred mentioned where what's interesting here is the way I look at this, we're not in the first step of the process, we're actually in step 2 right now. So we would not be here tonight having this conversation if it wasn't for the town successfully securing funds previously and completing the work that was done, the water improvements previously there on Court Street?
Court Street, yeah.
So again, want to commend the town on that, and the only reason we were able to again obtain this money is because of that success. So we're already building on one success. And we understand by working with this type of funding in the past that our ability to successfully leverage this public funding along with the town and the college will position us to go get additional funding in the future for implementation. So we've already identified MBRC Catalyst infrastructure grants as well as the state of Vermont's Rural Industrial Development Program as 2 future funding sources that will be available to us once this phase is complete. So I think it's really important here to just stress that our ability to all 3 parties work together to successfully leverage these dollars position us to again be very competitive in securing future funding to actually construct the work that will be designed in this phase. So by having the town come to the table and support this both as a participant and as a financial contributor really positions us to be effective in the future in seeing this project all the way through. So my hope is that with the town, the college's participation, we can have this pre-development engineering work completed by January 2026, which would allow us, in my mind, realistically, to then be applying for the implementation grants as early as fall 2026 and certainly no later than 2027. So again, we can really keep this process moving, I think, at a fairly steady pace. And the last thing I'll say again is to just reiterate, I think we have an opportunity here to not only create real tangible economic impacts for the community, but I think by all working together and by having all 3 parties participate in this public-private partnership, we create a precedent and a model for future partnership. And I think doing this successfully, as I mentioned, doesn't just make us competitive for future grants to support this work, but it also creates an example that the town can use in pursuing future funding, whether at the state or federal level, that shows a history and a track record of very effectively leveraging public dollars with public-private partnerships. So I think we have a great opportunity here to, again, not just create an economic impact, but to also create a model for collaboration that will really serve the town well in future funding opportunities. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. And
Go ahead.
My question is, the college owns all that land, so the college interest in possibly participating at the $50,000 level would be that would be a way to sell off that land and because I'm not sure what would motivate the college to do this, except for they are great supporters of the community and there's that, but is that the idea that they eventually would be selling these parcels?
Yeah, I don't want to speak to a specific commitment or intent that
Right.
the college has, but what I can say is that in our dialogue with the college, they have been very supportive, enthusiastic as well about development of these parcels, and not necessarily committed to, being the owner long term, or, they're very open to whatever the best path forward is in making the highest and best use of these parcels. So.
Right, okay, thank you.
The college has expressed an interest
Yep.
of divesting of
Right.
some land that is beneficial to the community.
Yep.
That either through business growth, or housing growth, or other lands that they're holding that are kind of key to the ability for the town to grow. And they're interested in being a partner in helping that occur.
Right, that's what I thought. Thanks.
Do you have a funding commitment from the college already?
Yes, the college has said that they will participate financially.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The $55,000.
We don't have an exact number from the college. They do understand the total cost associated with this project and understand what will be required to make it happen. But again, one thing I do want to stress here in our ask is that we're asking for up to $50,000 from the town. By going through that RFP or RFQ process, we'll be able to come back with a firm number where then all parties can kind of determine an actual number that they'll contribute then. What's important right now is just knowing that we have the participation of all three parties so that we don't go shop a project that's going to cost $130K just to find out after the fact that we're only getting, maybe a total of 50 or 75.
The one number we do know is we have a $25,000 grant from the
Right.
state.
Right.
And that's a deadline is January to use up that money, 25,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And like most grants, there's the opportunity to extend if we have to. We'd rather not.
So the town had an economic development initiative a couple of years ago, and from that, there was a fund established, and we have some on reserve that could be used for this purpose. It's legitimately, clearly business development. I would just comment, it's over 25 years ago, but the way the town and the college worked on this before was not just a matter of zoning, but actually a financial partnership. The town needed a new site for a wastewater treatment plant, and the college, they were at the time that this was this would be an Act 250 issue, much more than the town, particularly with respect to prime agricultural lands. And so the deal that was struck was the college would give the town the site if it was the farthest one up, and the town paid for the master planning and installation of the road, water, sewer, and power. So that gift from the college, it was more of an equal trade. I don't know if it was equal or not, but that's what we had to do. And so, the way developers sometimes finance things is to find a prospective purchaser for the lot and use that revenue to help fund the actual construction. They did it with us. So I think there was a considerable amount of master planning done then, and I think it's all still useful as far as it went. It's been a long time since 25 years, so the Act 250 permit conditions and what has to happen with regards to the prime ag lands and other wetlands issues that I think were a little worrisome as to what was actually buildable are the things that I recall, and you probably have reviewed this more recently, and
Yeah, we did look at
know what you're
those
getting into.
documents, and that's the point of this
Yeah.
exercise, would be to look at those issues and what
Okay,
needs
good.
to be
We're
addressed.
building on all that work. Excellent.
In that next phase, the fund that Alex mentioned that the state has, that's exactly how it works, is you've got a parcel that's ready to be built on, and you have an entity in hand, and the state will give you some funds to build the infrastructure or even build a building, and you have the entity take it over, and we pay the state back that money, and it revolves around. So, and then there's also the NBRC potential for funding as well.
In the scope of work that we've been operating with, we'll take that work all the way through permitting submittals. So, yeah.
I think this is great. I think we've been looking for a lot of opportunities to do what I find a lot of towns are already doing. And we're saying, you know, when's our opportunity going to come around to be able to do something like that? And I think to Fred's point, so Fred's talking about private public partnerships that we've done in the past. I'm wondering, with the Economic Development Fund, have we utilized this fund for any projects in the past yet? And if yes, what? And if we utilize money for this project, do we have a plan to replenish the funds, or what on an annual basis are we doing to actively put more money into this fund?
Yeah, the fund was establishment between the college and the town to try to do, actually we were targeting filling some of these lots and whatnot, and it didn't really gain traction. And some of that had to do with potentially what we were targeting, and some of it is just what they're doing now. We weren't shovel ready, and you attract somebody and they come, and there's all of this question about permitting, and our permitting process in Vermont can be strenuous, and we weren't, even within our own zoning, we weren't set up to smoothly help somebody through that process. And I think this gets us closer to it, and if it works, then maybe we talk about replenishing those funds. But we've been sitting on those funds looking for projects, development type projects. We've spent a few dollars, but nothing.
Initial funding was to fund a position.
Yeah, so this funded Jamie Gaucher's position, yeah.
And so this is, nothing's happened in the past since he left.
Yeah.
I think we
10
spent
years
a
ago?
few dollars, but not much.
Yeah, this was done 8 or 9 years ago.
We did pull a report from the finance office. There's a $5,000 expenditure from last year, but other than that, this fund hasn't been used since 2019, and back then it was all payroll charges. So
So we weren't actually doing the. Now we're going to kind of maybe flip the switch, and we'll actually participate in that, and then have an attractive lot that we can offer, or lots.
That's a lot.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to encumber up to $50,000 from the current balance of the town's Economic Development Fund for the proposed pre-development design work at the Middlebury Industrial Park.
Second. Moved and seconded. I'm going to give an opportunity for any other questions or comments. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome
Welcome to the community, Alex.
Happy to be here.
Somebody made a comment last week, he's too young to be doing this.
Give me a couple of years.
Fred's only 35. He used to be like that when he started. This is what he turned out after being there for 10 years.
Yeah, this is
Biggest though I looked like that when I started 40 years ago with Senator Leahy, and then went to the States.
Okay. I was a little short of time there.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good night, Fred.
So that next item, as noted there, it turned out not to be quite ready for prime time for this meeting. So we've talked to Kelly and Catherine, and we'll have that up at the next one on the 13th.
Delinquent taxes, Mark.
All right.
Oh, boy.
Delinquent taxes.
Fun.
So I met a few weeks ago with Nick from the finance department and David, and we sat down to take a look at the delinquent tax list as it currently stands. Right now, there are approximately 30 parcels with overdue tax balances, some of them dating back to 2015 and 16. They total about $200,000 all combined. So, and as an aside, I just want to say that the property owners are receiving regular bills and notifications, and that includes not only the outstanding taxes, but also the penalties and fees that are tacked onto that. So this shouldn't surprise anyone that receives one of these letters. But in your packet for tonight was a draft letter that we put together. it's intended to put everyone on this list on notice that we're preparing for the next steps in the delinquent tax collection process. I want to just say that the letter that's in your packet tonight has not been reviewed or approved by town council. So it's a very early draft, and the goal really is to take a step forward, reach out to these folks, and encourage them to come in, meet with our finance department, and work out a payment plan to reduce this number from 30 to something far less before we come to you with a list to take the next steps. So tonight really is just to let you know that we're working behind the scenes to do this, and you will see a more formal, assuming you're comfortable with what I presented tonight and what you read in your packet, we'll come back to you with a more formal list when the time is right.
How far back do some of these go, the back taxes?
15, 16, everybody on the list though is at least 1 year.
Okay.
Most of them are just a year or two.
Yeah.
And if in order to appear on that list, you have to be at least a couple of years. Yeah. It's usually not somebody for 10 years.
No, that's a rare situation. But it's still time to be a little more aggressive on this, I think, and that's all we're trying to do is keep the wheels in motion. No board action.
We have to do it, we have to do it. That's good to me. Yep.
I think that's a thumbs up, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, we're not looking for any board action tonight. We just want to keep you informed, and didn't want the notices to surprise you if you hear from a constituent that receives one.
Okay, check warrants.
Sure, that was me. I move to approve the total expenditures in the amount of $1,234,437.63, consisting of $1,112,048.51 for accounts payable and $122,389.12 for payroll for the period of April 9, 2025 through April 22, 2025.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Board member concerns. Fred?
I appreciate the department head presentation such as we got tonight from David DiBiase. And I understand our next one up is Nick on finance stuff. And around this time of the year, our professional auditors get around to producing an audit, which in state law is actually supposed to come out and be in the town report. But in the past year, when Kathleen sent this out, I found it was quite a sizable thing to read through and try to think about and understand, not being an accountant myself. And it would help, and I think I'd like to ask this on, not just for myself, but for the board in advance of our next meeting when Nick is there, if we could be sent the audit so that we could have some questions ready and have a more intelligent discussion than we might otherwise if we were just presented with it at the spot of that night. That's all.
Prior to Nick's appearance here.
Give us more than a few days to digest it.
I forgot to mention this a couple meetings ago, but on March 26th, Atria Collective, our sexual assault, domestic violence prevention resource in the county, had an award ceremony. Their Kimberly Cron's Citizen of the Year kind of award, and they gave it to our Middlebury detective Ruth Whitney. She does the sexual assault. She's the sexual assault investigator and a detective on our team. So I wanted to highlight her and congratulate her, and also show that, you know, that intersection of law enforcement and domestic violence prevention is being highlighted in our town. So glad to have someone on our law enforcement team who's recognized by an organization like that.
Is she leaving or cutting back her hours or something? Wasn't there
I'm
something?
trying to retire for a long time.
I think she's, yeah. So, good.
And I think did we recently add some kind of stipend or addition to that position
So
or
Chief
benefit?
Chief Covey could hire
Yeah,
a person.
sometime
Cause she only
full-time.
works part-time. So
Yeah, so we made that
Long way back.
position a little bit more beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Isabel.
Yeah.
Dan?
Is it okay if I talk about this?
Sure.
Email? So, being on the library committee, it's really exciting what's going on out there. You actually see the old side of the library is still there, and it's a little teeny library. So we need to add on to it, which I think we're doing. But getting some of the emails and everything, things are going really well. They just wrapped up, or wrapping up the drilling down to the wells in the lower lot, and I don't understand all this, but it's really exciting news that the pump 2 went down 383 feet with 250 gallons per minute, which is really, really outstanding. And from the chain of emails, everybody's really excited about that. And so it looks to be, from what I'm reading there, this geothermal is plenty of flow, and another great success. Everything's moving along. They're going to start next week, expanding the parking lot, which will be fun to watch.
Tearing it up and shifting it.
Yep, moving it out. So, and also there was an email. I'm not sure if everybody got this email, but there was a question asked about what's happening to all this material that's being hauled out. 90% of it's being recycled. It's being recycled throughout the state in various areas. So the company that's doing the demolition, it's their stuff to haul out, and it's their stuff to make money off of, and they're selling almost 90% of the product, which is really a Vermont way of doing something. So, all good.
When you're demolishing something, you have to certify that you're recycling it to the maximum extent possible. So.
I didn't know that, but they certainly are doing a really good job with that.
Some of the old marble slabs and the plywood they took off and whole sheets when they could, and
The marble slabs off the side are going to be used.
They're using it.
For I can't remember what it's for. Steps, I think?
Yeah, for the grand stairwell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, they're being used there.
The email that Dan's referring to on the wells was shared by Judith this afternoon, so I'll send that out to the full board.
Yeah, he just got it. He told me I had it, so.
Farhad.
Yeah, I really like David DiBiase coming on. I should thank you for initiating this department and coming to us. It's a much more relaxed atmosphere, giving you an update, and it's so much easier to get a picture of what's happening in the town instead of having an itemized discussion whenever they come. So thank you, Mark, for doing this. Appreciate it.
Megan?
Did I unmute myself? Okay, I did. Sorry, I have the flu, so I'm also just really fading. So thank you. I want to second what Farhad said. That was great to have that, and I hope we get some more. So that's all. I don't have anything else. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Andy?
Yeah, I got nothing tonight. I'm good. Thanks.
You having fun down in the city?
It's awesome. Yeah, the kids are at Chicago right now, and then they're coming back to Brooklyn when they get out there.
So did you run into a barber shop today or something? I mean, I've never seen you with that little hair all over your whole head.
He went through a car wash.
It's spring. It's 72 degrees down here. The trees are all in flower. I could not maintain my winter beard in this kind of lovely weather.
He has a seasonal beard. Sorry, we couldn't let it go. Looks like Mr. Clean there if he took his glasses
Looks
off.
like Mr. Clean. I just want to make sure that we do get back to with an answer what our plan is on Rogers Road and Daniel Drive and stuff. At some point, I think we need to be very thoughtful about our approach there. Because there are, both sides. But we do need, I guess I missed that we were gonna do a sidewalk, $1 million sidewalk plan there. So maybe I'm missing something with the discussion, but I know from the podcast that Andy turned me on to, that I think David turned Andy on to, talks about there's much better ways to calm traffic than just putting bumps in the roads. And
Yes.
So, if we have that, it'd be really nice to know what our vision is for that. So anyways, that's only my main concern. We need to, we're gonna do a couple personnel things. We'll do one here in open session, and then we're gonna do, we had a lot of applicants, and we talked and we just feel like we're gonna do our discussion of candidates in closed session. And we just feel that out of the respect for all the candidates, that we're gonna discuss it in closed session, and then we'll come out of closed session and we'll make our appointments. But we have to do our board appointments first, and we're gonna do that in open session here.
Brian, I just point out, the others here appeared at the last time. Dick Turk is one of the candidates for the planning commission, and he wasn't here last meeting. Before we go into session, Dick was the chair of the planning commission when I came to town in 1981 for a couple of terms.
Oh, no way.
He was fantastic back then, I would just say, and he has a lot of experience working for Carrera and Engelberg Construction, so he would add a dimension to construction experience and history that I think would be very good to balance the planning commission.
Can I, was I supposed to be here 2 weeks ago? Because
well, 2 weeks ago, we did just ask anybody who was here if they cared to introduce themselves, and feel free. Come say hi to the board here.
What Beth told me was to be here on the 22nd.
Beth.
But anyway,
You can come up.
Well, you got a great introduction.
Yes.
Nobody else
I
has
can't
that.
top that. But no, I've been working out of Middlebury for almost 28 years now. I worked for Carreras for 22 years, and I was actually on the planning commission for 10 years, and I was chairman for 3 or 4 years, yeah. And I enjoy working with the town and helping the town grow and so forth, and so and I think I'm retired now, mostly, and so I've got time, and I'm, as working with Engelberg, I mean, my jobs were all over, a lot of in New Hampshire. I did a lot of work at Dartmouth College, and plus I did a lot of hospital work. I was a project manager for Engelberg. So now that I've got time and I'm back in, because before that, when I was working for Engelberg, I never knew where I was going to be. Well, I did, but I mean, it was never when the right time to be here. So now I've got time. I want to get back involved in with the town, and I think my experience in construction and with, I think maybe things have changed a little bit on the planning commission in the last 26, 28 years, but I think I can get back into it. Yeah. 30. Yeah, I guess, yeah. So it's that's why I put my name back in, because I'd like to get involved back with the town now that I'll be around a lot more. So, any questions?
Thank you for
Thanks, Dick.
offering to.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm
Haven't
sorry
seen
I
you in
wasn't
a couple of years.
Yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't here 2 weeks ago, but
Yeah.
but whatever. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
So let's look at the board's committee assignments. There's a sheet, if you pull it up, if everybody's got it.
Yep.
So, is there anybody that would like to shift committees who's currently on a committee?
Andy's got his hand up.
Andy?
Yeah, I find that I'm not able to make infrastructure committee as often as I'd like. I realize it's very important, and I suggest that someone who can regularly be available for several hours on Thursday mornings take that on. And I would be more than willing to step on to personnel in Heather's absence.
Megan, is infrastructure something that you would be able to make?
I do like the idea of infrastructure, but Thursday is the worst day for me because I am flat out posting stuff for the Addison Independent. So unfortunately, the timing is just not, it doesn't work.
Okay. And right now, we would have Fred, and we need at least one other. Dan is...
Usually we're all clamoring to be on infrastructure. I mean, it's
just the timing of the meetings is.
Oh, yeah, no.
Almost
We're,
midday.
hopefully, we'll have Heather, who,
well,
she's not a
Heather's
member.
not,
But from the select board,
we need
we have
one
to-
other select board
No,
member.
from the select board.
So you're not working in town anymore, right?
No, I work remotely. I just feel like it's not my expertise.
I get it.
am
And that's
all in. I'm good to learn,
But
it will be a steep learning curve for me. I could do it, but I don't know what I would bring to the table in regards to expertise.
Yeah.
that's honest, that's good.
What
Dan?
time-
Just
what time
what
do
they
we
need on
meet?
infrastructure.
I know you were
honestly.
attending incognito a bunch.
I do, I really, when I came on, that was the one I wanted to get, but you couldn't, 5 years ago, you couldn't fight your way out of
So?
that.
This is your chance.
Here's your
this is a
chance,
golden
Dan.
opportunity.
I'm in the last year of a term that might be my last term, and I'm not, and I'll tell you what, I want to stay on DIDC because there's a lot of things that are going to take place to resurrect that committee.
Yeah.
I'm obviously going to stay on the library, and I mean that committee is not very active right now, but Fahad and I are deep in.
And you're on the personal committee.
And I'm on the personnel committee, which meets very infrequently or has huge projects. It ebbs and flows. So I hadn't even thought about infrastructure. I'll think about it if it's still there. I'll think about it.
Can I lean on you to commit to it, and then we'll free you up from the public health and safety and put Megan on that? And
Yeah, I do that.
you only have 1 year that you have to commit? It's
Yeah,
1 year at a
but
time?
man, I mean, I will turn that committee upside down. I mean, they don't want that. Okay. We'll see how it goes.
Go, Dan.
Yay, Dan. Good job.
Okay,
I
let me just
desperately
look
wanted it.
through.
Forced to be.
Good peer pressure.
Yeah.
Good illustration of peer pressure.
Fred, you're
I was
fine with
bullied.
staying on
Yeah.
energy, right?
Yes?
The one that we don't have, was an additional, let's see, Heather. Okay, the other one is the representative to the airport communications task group if needed. Is that something,
You had just mentioned at some point, we gotta replace Nick in terms of having a point person.
Yeah.
They don't meet on a regular, they don't meet.
They don't meet,
It's sort of
period.
ad hoc or when something
But,
arises.
but in case something does happen where we need to start meeting, is that something, Fred, you had voiced an interest in that at one time?
Fred's the perfect guy for that.
Interest is a strong, a willingness, I have to wonder what its mission is.
Well, it had a mission when
It was
we stood it up.
communications
We,
with the
because we
state.
had a project and there was no communication, and so it was we stood that committee up to increase the communications as part of the project and to bring members of the community into the review of the project so that they had some idea and they didn't feel like they were gonna just find out when the plans were issued.
Well, I'm willing to step up to that since Dan and Andy are on 4 committees each, and I'm just slacker here at 2, so sure.
Mine are all the lightweight ones except for Illsley, and that's lightweight now, so.
Well, now you're on
Mine was pretty,
infrastructure,
So I'm willing to do that.
Okay.
I just assume it doesn't.
It's an as needed
Yeah.
right now that we don't have any projects. If that, it might be the case where we would have, you know,
If
a
something
meeting or
happens
two
with
with
that,
that project that they gave us an idea of things that they're looking at, as that comes down the line, making sure that the community there has the latest information and is involved. That's was the intent.
So basically, information liaison. Cool.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
All right.
Okay, if we're good with that, then we need to go into executive session to do our.
Before that, can we talk about the expenditure review?
The what?
The expenditure review committee.
Oh.
Yeah, we brought that up before.
Yeah. That was.
I would love to do it full time.
What's the expenditure review committee?
A form of mindfulness for me.
Yeah.
But I also know.
Go for it.
I also know that I think at the retreat, we'll have a discussion on, is that even relevant? So.
Yeah.
Well,
I worry that even if Izzy is willing to take this on, that there is work in preparing this for select board review that finance would not need to do otherwise. And unless I see a value in this process, I wonder why we would make staff take on their portion of this process.
In the last 8-9 years, I have come across a couple of very minor things in that, and it's not even worth mentioning. There was somebody who charged you like a $10 tax on something, and it should not be taxed. I didn't see anything that's alarming that we have to have a 2 set of eyes on it. And it's in the middle of the day. It's a commitment is a huge issue for me. So, and like Andy said, we are the only town who's doing it in the whole state.
Serious?
I didn't say that, I said that our auditors don't know if
That's what he said.
Well,
The important
have
thing
to
is, do you
prepare
guys find value in it?
the finance department has to prepare an audit report for the administration to sign, and it's actually a state law that the select board has to vote on these things, is it not?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I sent you some stuff about that, the citation, but I'll, you know, anyway,
So we get the summary of all the checks. I guess what I would have attested to is that there's checks and balances within the staff, that who's writing the checks is different than who's signing them. You know, who's
Yeah,
posting
that's
them is
right.
different than who's writing the checks. And
Yeah.
if we have the checks and balances within the staff, and then we review the sheet of all the checks, then that should be sufficient versus coming in and going through all of the invoices. So, but you have to have internal checks and balances in place, so.
And we have that.
Well, and I think-
Kathleen set that up and
Yeah,
So-
but we just need to attest
If
to
we
that.
have that in place, then we don't have to have this.
well, it's the degree of review of the invoices that is really what we're talking about, and that's not a burden on the staff. They have to prepare these to be signed by the manager anyways, ultimately, in order for the checks to be issued by the treasurer. So it's just a matter of having Izzy, and I'm willing to back you up if you need a backup, but because you know, it's not. I don't see it as a burden or problem personally. But
Why don't we have Izzy review them until we do the research on what the requirements are and talk about it in our retreat?
Yeah, we just need a little
I
more
put my
time.
headphones in, listen to nice calm music,
Go
get
for
to
it.
chat with people. Everyone says, "What are you doing?" I say, "Oh my gosh, I am being a great public servant. Do you want to sit with me, chat?" You know?
Wow, you need a life, you know that? You really need a life.
Okay, can somebody take us into executive?
Yeah, I moved to, enter into executive session with the inclusion of town manager and assistant town manager to the appointment, employment, evaluation of public officers as allowed under Title I, Section 313A3.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna enter executive session.
So we're ready to go. So there's an attachment in your packet. If you just want to reference it, we can handle all the non-contested positions. And then, how do you want to document this for the record? Do you want me to read them out loud? Do you want me to, we've
Well,
been taking
this-
notes as we've been going through
Well,
it.
the Maple broadband alternate, we've changed that from the uncontested list.
Why don't we start from the beginning?
Oh, wow. We can just read them through.
Okay.
The non-contested appointments?
No, because some of these have changed as well. Maple broadband one has changed.
Okay, so I have notes we can read from.
Yeah.
That's-
You want to
Okay.
read through them?
Sure.
So,
Okay.
so actually, if we could have a motion for the non-contested appointment sheet with and make the exceptions that, because Hugh McLaughlin had already been, appointed in another position to maximize, the opportunity for other citizens to get involved, we've pulled him from that committee.
Would be true.
Somebody's willing to make that motion?
You want to motion like this?
Make a motion reading them.
Make the motion, you don't have to read every name, but you could,
I move that the board appoint the non-contested applicants on our packet submission, with the exception of the Maple broadband alternate, that we will, instead of Hugh McLaughlin, we're going to appoint Drew Darrow.
Second.
moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, it's unanimous.
Excellent.
Okay, the next is the contested, and I think, if you could read us through the appointments for the contested positions, and we'll have a motion to appoint according to that list.
Okay, so in order from the top here, for the planning commission, you have Nicole Foster, Randy Langren, Derek Combs, Richard Turk, and you appointed an alternate, Ethan Kellogg.
Ethan Kellogg, okay?
I'll move to appoint those.
Don't just
positions.
keep going through the
Just
whole
keep
list.
going.
Okay.
The whole thing first?
Yeah, we'll do the
Moving
same.
on, DRB, Gene Iceberg, Mark Welch, and Michael Reeves. We're holding on DAC.
Did you say Gene and the DRB?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
That was the first one. ACRPC, I have 3 appointments and 1 alternate, Melanie, Karina, and Hugh, and 1 alternate, Philip. TAC, we have Laura Stromley, and 1 alternate, Rick Walker. Sports Commission, no action. Downtown Improvement District Commission, 1 vacancy, Victoria Jetty. The Energy Committee as presented in the packet. Do you want me to read through those names as well?
Yeah, since it is Mike and Steve.
We already voted on those in the
yeah,
non-contested
they're-
list.
Okay, infrastructure then, moving on. Heather Seeley, Luther Tenney, and Candy McLaughlin, and one alternate reappointment here, Judy Weiger Gross. Parks and Rec, we're holding for now. Conservation Commission,
That was,
okay. Naval Broadband. We have one appointment, Ross, with an alternate, Drew, which was on the Lincoln desk. Fence viewers, one appointment, Patty, correct?
uncontested, yep.
Yep. Deputy Health Officer, Patty Pruitt. Did I miss anything?
That's it. That's all I have.
I'll move that slate of candidates.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous. Okay. How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Good night, guys.
Good night.